Welcome to Demystifying the Metaphysical, here to help you find more compassion in your life. Today we're going to discuss the nose. It tells us about our desire for power and influence. Traditionally, the nose was used to gauge a person's status and wealth. But depending on our goals and aspirations in life, ambition and perseverance may help, but they certainly are not the only ingredients for success in life. Let's find out what the different parts of the nose says about us. When looking at the size of the nose, we're going to look at it by length and width. Starting with the length of the nose, a quick reminder from the Face Reading Basics video, link on the top right if you haven't seen it. When determining the size of a feature, it is compared to the other features on the face and the face as a whole. Usually, a small or narrow nose will be found on a long or narrow face. It's not common to see a small and narrow nose on a face with big features. When there is a feature that is inconsistent with the rest of the face, this feature will have a stronger influence on the person's character. People with long noses, like what we see on the person on the left, are good at planning ahead. They're confident, goal-oriented, conservative, and prefer to use logic and reason. Sometimes they can be quite serious. People with short noses, like what we see on the person on the right, are open-minded, optimistic, and outgoing. They prefer to go with their intuition and feelings. They can be very hardworking, but prefer to take things at their own pace and to work in a group environment. They can also be very loyal, sometimes to a fault. Looking at the width of the nose, the width along the bridge of the nose can vary quite a bit. Sometimes it can be very narrow at the root of the nose, which is the space between the eyes, and much wider by the nose tip. Comparing the width of the nose of the two people here, the person on the left has a wider nose along the whole length of the nose. People with a broad nose bridge are natural leaders, sensual, sociable, have a wide range of interests, and are individualistic. They get a sense of fulfillment through achieving goals. People with a narrow nose bridge, like the person on the right, tend to go with the flow, are group-oriented, reserved, and may be a perfectionist. They are happiest connecting with others. Let's take a closer look at the root of the nose, the area between the eyes. Besides the different characteristics that can be gleaned from this area of the face, it also reveals how we use our energy and whether we hold on to our thoughts and emotions. People with a broad nose root, like what we see on the person on the left, will have a strong flow of incoming and outgoing energy. Likewise, their thoughts and emotions flow freely. Generally, they'll have a lot of physical strength and stamina. They're also practical, down to earth, and have a no-nonsense approach to life, allowing them to focus on what they think is important. When the root of the nose is narrow, like what we see on the person on the right, they will use their energy wisely. They tend to hold on to their emotions and thoughts and may have a hard time letting go. But when it comes to their approach to life, they are flexible, as they're open to new ideas and experiences. When the root of the nose is concaved or dips downward, the person will be intuitive, empathetic, introspective, and may overthink. And when this area doesn't dip, is high, or curves outward, the person is confident and assertive. These people have a strong sense of self and are willing to take risks. Let's take a look at the profile of the nose, starting with the scooped nose on the left. People with a bridge that's concaved are intuitive, generous, and friendly. These people are usually popular because they are affectionate and charming. Moving to the person in the middle who has a straight nose profile. Notice how there's a slight dip between her forehead and the root of her nose. Later, we're going to look at a profile where there is no dip in this area. People with a straight nose are disciplined, logical, and practical thinkers. They prefer to work in an organized and systemic way, while a scoop-nosed person is more flexible, free-spirited, and prefers a career where they can be emotionally involved. Moving to the person on the right with a slight bump on her nose where the yellow arrow is pointing. This is a sign of a person who prefers a position of authority. Their natural inclination is to take charge of situations. Taking a look at a few more nose profiles here, starting with the profile mentioned earlier about there not being a dip between the forehead and the nose as seen on the person on the left. Notice how it's a straight line from her forehead to the tip of her nose. People with this type of nose are confident, disciplined, and ambitious. Moving to the person in the middle with an arched or convex nose profile. These people are highly creative. Moving to the person on the right, notice how this person's nose is also arched, but the arch is much higher. The nose comes off of the face by more than 1 inch. This is a sign of a person who's a trailblazer. These people are adventurous pioneers. In general, people who have protruding noses live out in the external world. They prefer to take charge, while people with flatter noses go with the flow. They're content with the way things have always been. Looking at the tip of the nose, a squared nose tip like what we see on the person on the left, it looks like the tip of the nose has squared off edges. People with this type of nose tip are practical, reliable, and persistent. They're often grounded and centered, and are less likely to be swayed by others. Moving to the person in the middle with a pointed nose tip. This is a sign of a person who is idealistic, curious, and intuitive. They can pick up subtle cues from others. They're also very inquisitive and love asking why. Moving to the person on the right with a fleshy nose tip. This is a sign of a person who is a creature of comforts. They're interested in accumulating and collecting. It could be anything from collecting as a hobby to accumulating wealth. Taking a look at the nose tip angle. If the tip of the nose is upturned, revealing the nostrils like what we see on the person on the left, people with this type of nose are sentimental, friendly, open-hearted, and affectionate. Some may prefer to live in the moment. People with a downturned nose where the nostrils aren't visible, like what we see on the person in the middle, these people are shrewd and have a business mind. They use their heads more than their hearts. When the nose tip turns downwards and the tip of the nose droops to cover part of the philtrum, which is a little dip right above the upper lip, the person's shrewdness will also apply to financial matters. They're great at managing money and investments. A person with a cleft or a split on the tip of their nose where the blue arrows are pointing shows a person who is original. If faced with challenges, they prefer to work things out on their own terms and are less likely to ask others for help. A bony nose, like what we see on the person on the left, looks sharp and angular. The bridge is prominent and the skin along the bridge looks tight. It almost looks like the skin along the bridge is thin and you can see all the bumps underneath. Usually, the nostrils on a bony nose isn't fleshy either. A person with a bony nose is self-disciplined, idealistic, and prefers to live a simple life. They'll likely choose a career based on their interests rather than for material gains. A fleshy nose, like what we see on the person on the right, looks soft and rounded. People with fleshy noses are warm, compassionate, creative, and sensual. They enjoy things that touch their physical senses, like good food, music, and art. When looking at someone straight on at eye level and their nostrils aren't visible like what we see on the person on the left, this is a sign that the person is introverted, reserved, and private. They prefer to keep their feelings and thoughts to themselves. People with narrow nostrils, like what we see in the person in the middle, are cautious, analytical, observant, and detail-oriented. Like the narrow nose bridge, people with narrow nostrils will use their energy wisely. They prefer a steady career with a fixed salary, as these people are not usually big risk takers. People with broad or fully visible nostrils, like what we see on the person on the right, desire independence and freedom. They expend their energy easily, are confident, adventurous, and curious. Taking a look at a few different nostril shapes, a person with a triangular nostril, like what we see on the person on the left, is a sign of a competitive and ambitious person who may be willing to take risks to succeed. Moving to the person in the middle with an ellipse-shaped nostril, this is also a sign of a person who's willing to take risks, but more so because they're adventurous. Not shown here, but people with a round-shaped nostril are optimistic and cheerful. They focus on the bright side of life. Moving to the person on the right with flared nostrils, this is a sign of passion and determination. These people are energetic. Sometimes this is a sign of a person who rises from rags to riches. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to share, like, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.